All right, good morning to everyone. My name is Nardev Ramanathan, and I am an Associate Research Director at Lux Research. And I am going to talk to you today about potential opportunities in digital biomarkers, especially as you think about healthcare and how emerging technologies can really play an important role in providing more insights and help deliver better care to patients, right? So I'm going to give you a brief introduction about who we are, Lux, before I get in. So Lux Research, we are basically a boutique technology consultancy. We've been around for about 20 years now, and we are very specialized in assessing and evaluating early stage technologies, and we help our clients better understand and develop strategies around how they want to engage with these technologies, either through partnerships or investments. We develop a lot of syndicated market research and reports that are available for our clients. And our clients also get to talk to our analysts. There are unlimited opportunities for them to talk to us whenever they have any questions around these technologies. Many different domain areas we focused on. I basically lead our health and wellness practice here at Lux Research. We are a globally diverse company, so we are headquartered up in Boston, but we have offices in Toronto, Amsterdam, Singapore, New York, and Tokyo as well. Uh, um, Myself, I'm actually based in our Singapore office, so I'm, talking to you here from Singapore. So general overview of the space, right? So what is digital biomarkers? So at Lux, like I said before, we've developed a lot of different tools to assess, perform our analysis. And one of this is called our Lux text signal. And what this is basically a consolidation of different kinds of data sets into one simple visual that you can better understand innovation momentum in this space. So Lux text signal basically takes into account 5 different data sets. It takes into account patent data, VC funding data, government funding data, academic research, as well as our own Lux proprietary data as well. And it consolidates that all, compresses that into one signal, one unitless signal, that is then benchmarked against all the different technologies that we track, right? So there's an average signal here, the gray sort of chart that you see here. So this includes things like genomics, things like digital therapeutics, and even outside healthcare, right? Even things like lithium-ion batteries and things like that, to give you a sense of where the technology is headed from an innovation momentum perspective. So you can see that digital biomarkers has been fairly nascent, which is not surprising because a lot of these has only come into more mainstream, I would say, the last 5 years or so, right? But it's definitely picking up momentum, as we can see in this space, right? Especially if you see the sort of proliferation of wearable technologies, remote monitoring tools, digital therapeutics, and so on. All of these are very reliant on digital biomarker collection, right? So what is digital biomarkers, right? So digital biomarkers is very foundational for non-invasive health monitoring. So it's like a traditional biomarker. So you can think of it like, traditional biomarkers when you go and get your blood work done, right, from your clinical lab, pathology lab. Um, you kind of get a blood drawn, and then you get a sort of a, analysis given to you after that, right, telling you, let's say, your glucose levels, your lipid levels, cholesterol levels, all of that. So digital biomarker is similar, except that the interesting thing is that it can be collected continuously, right? So unlike your traditional biomarkers, you only go to the clinic how often? Maybe once a year, 6 months, if you're a little bit more, concerned about your health. But it doesn't give you a continuous picture, right? It's very episodic. You only get those snapshots, those periods of time. You don't know what's happening in between, right? Digital biomarker data can be collected continuously, right? So there's continuous sampling points close together, and that gives you a much better comprehensive overview of your health over a period of time, right? The data can be non-invasively collected, right? So unlike your needles or your other invasive tools, right, a lot of these digital biomarker technologies rely on non-invasive sensors. Just think of your smartwatch, right? That's a good example. You have, let's say, your ECG sensor, your PPG sensor, right? Doesn't pierce the skin. It's not a people don't have to worry too much about things like pain and so on, right? So that's good. And finally, the data can be processed algorithmically, right? So it can be processed in scale. You can collect and combine multiple data streams and get more insights out of it, right? As opposed to traditional biomarkers where, of course, you get the analysis done, you can scan those results, but it's not immediately available as a digital asset as such, right? So these are some key factors that make digital biomarkers very attractive, right, for large-scale analysis and extracting weak but consistent signals that give you very deep insights into someone's health. And the other thing about digital biomarkers that's very interesting is that, of course, sensors are very foundational for it, but you can extract a very broad set of data as well. So it gives you a very multi-dimensional perspective of an individual's health. So if you think about your traditional biomarkers, you're primarily collecting more physiological or biochemical markers, right? But digital biomarkers can collect activity data, right? So step data is one common one that you probably know of. But also, you can collect things like information about pressure, right? Pressure sensors in your soles, let's say, right? For someone recovering, let's say, from a stroke, and I'll talk about that later, right? Or even pressure sensors on the bed, looking at things like bed ulcers and all that sort of thing. Behavioral sensors, where sensors can be used to monitor things around changes in your tone, in your voice, right? So voice-based biomarkers are being developed, let's say, to look at early stages of dementia, for example, or even signs of stress or fatigue or respiratory illnesses as well, just from your voice. So that's, interesting area of development as well. Environmental sensors kind of look at things like, changes in temperature, changes in light quality, air quality, humidity, which now we know can affect, say, your sleep patterns, respiratory health, and so on. And of course, vital signs, that's pretty obvious. I think everyone knows smartwatch is a great example there. So you can see that there's a lot of different kinds of types of data you can collect, which is very informative about an individual's health. And even better is that, a lot of these tools can be literally collected from head to toe, right? You can have headband form factors looking at brain health, all the way down to your toes, right? All kinds of different sensors are available there. And the beautiful part is you don't even have to have the sensors touching your body, right? A lot of these tools or information can be collected using your smartphones. Some developers are looking at how keystroke patterns are changing over time, which can inform you about early development of Parkinson's disease, let's say. Of course, we talked about microphone already. That doesn't require any sensor touching your body. We talked about pressure sensors on the bed. They can monitor, are you moving right? Are you at risk of developing ulcers? Or let's say someone fell off the bed, right? All sorts of information there. Even cars, right? Some automotive developers are looking at these sensors in terms of capturing information about signs of fatigue. Let's say they call it emotional AI, right? So they can warn drivers to take a rest, stop driving. Or if they get too agitated or angry, right? Let's say traffic jams. That's one area that people are looking at as well. So you're probably wondering, all right, that's all well and good, but what's the actual data out there looking like, right? In terms of pattern data, investment trend data. So you can see that actually it's pretty healthy, right? Over the years, pattern data and academic research data has been growing quite steadily over the years, although it's still an emerging field. Right now, it's led a lot. If you look at the patent data itself, it's led a lot by big consumer electronics companies. Not surprising, right? To Apple, Samsung, Huawei, and so on. Or your, big medical device companies, right? Like your Roche and Eli Lilly. So that's not very surprising. US still leads in terms of their domination of the IP market, but it's not a very big domination, right? It's about one third of the market, global market share, at least when you look at 2022. But China is not far behind, right? About one quarter of the world's market there. One caveat to note is that a lot of these digital-based algorithms and so on, they tend not to get patented because, not everyone wants to reveal their playbook, right? Once you get that out, you lose your competitive edge. So a lot of these are kept as trade secrets as well. So it's not capturing all of that. But overall, you get a good snapshot of, the trend out there. In terms of investment trends, you can see that, there's been a big sort of jump, especially in 2021, 2022, especially during the COVID pandemic era. But there was a big dip, right, in 2023, and that's because, of geopolitical and macroeconomic situation. This sort of tightening of interest rates and so on really sort of dried up a lot of VC funding capital. But it's starting to pick up again in 2024. Of course, we don't have the full data. The year is not ended yet, but it is much better than 2023. There are some big ticket size investments coming in, 58 million round raised by BioLink that's looking at continuous glucose monitoring technology. Another 20 million round raised in April looking at, early autism detection technology. So you can see that, there is still, a lot of interest in this space, although there was a bit of a dip in 2023. So overall, that should hopefully paint a picture, kind of highlighting how there's, I would say healthy innovation momentum in this space overall, right? As we saw in the tech signal. So the next sort of segment here, I want to talk a little bit about some key technologies and startups, right? So now we kind of know that, okay, this is probably a very interesting area, but what are startups doing and, what kind of technologies are out there? So I'm going to give you some examples here to kind of, give you a better sort of understanding as to what this space is looking like, right? And I want to do this, sort of systematically. So I'm going to go through the different areas that we talked about earlier, starting from the head, and we'll go down to the different body parts as well as off body as well, and give you, an example in each case. So the head-based monitoring, right, or upper-based body monitoring, right? What is that looking like, right? So you'll see that one example here is a developer called Dream. They actually got acquired recently by a larger company called Beacon Biosignals. But what's interesting about this company is that, well, they make, a sleep monitoring headband for improved sleep quality. So that's not very, you probably have heard of some developers doing that, right? Monitoring your, sort of brainwave patterns to give you some insights as to how to improve sleep quality. But what's unique about this startup, it's a French-based startup here, is that they not only monitor, but they also provide biofeedback, right? Which is where it gets really interesting because monitoring does only half the story, right? Like if you're monitoring your health, you also need to know what you need to do to make sure that, you can improve your health. Just having the data on your hand doesn't really do much, right? You need guidance, you need direct intervention if possible, right? So Dream actually has developed this technology where it not only detects your brainwaves, but also provides this slow wave stimulation called biofeedback, which is basically this sort of slow wave sounds, right? Audio that allows you to sleep faster. So you have these bone conduction earphones attached to the headband here that basically allows you to sleep faster. So it picks up information about your brainwave in real time and then gives you the right sort of stimulation to allow you to sleep faster. So kind of closing the loop, right? Monitoring and performing the intervention at the same time. So they have pattern around it, and they claim they have a 93% correlation with medical grade wet electrodes. So interesting. Our take is still wait and see because they're still doing clinical trials. So it tells you, they've been around for 10 years, right? So they're still testing and validating this technology further. Goes to show how complex this space is from a technical perspective. So, but if they can show good validation, I think this is a really good kind of technology to watch because it does close that loop, right? So this is kind of a developer that's interesting there. The next is really sort of, your chest and wrist form factors. Right now, we're talking about your sort of mid body area, right? And this is probably the most, I would say, mainstream today. mostly around your wrist form factors, right? I think the obvious one you can think of is smartwatch. But smart rings are rapidly becoming very popular as well over the years. It used to be a very niche area. Aura is one of the foremost developers in this space. You might have heard of them, but I'm sure you've heard that Samsung launched the Galaxy Ring recently. So the big players are also starting to get interested in this area. So smart rings, they are interesting, right? Because what additional value do they add compared to a smartwatch? If you already have a smartwatch, you still need a smart ring, right? But it's interesting because some people actually find rings are less intrusive, and rings also connect with certain blood vessels, and it's gives you much better contact as opposed to a smartwatch, right? Where may not get very good contact with certain blood vessels. So there's some benefits there. Aura is a Finnish company, and they've developed this smart ring. They've been around for a number of years now. They're currently on a Generation 3, but I think the Generation 4 device is going to launch soon. It's packed with a lot of sensors. So they have about 7 sensors, including 4 temperature sensors, a PPG sensor, which is looking at your heart rate and your blood pressure, SpO2 sensor, looking at blood oxygen levels, and also accelerometer, looking at your movement. So a lot of different information is collecting just from a tiny form factor there. And the great thing about a device like this is that also it's waterproof, so you can use it while you're bathing. You're getting continuous data there. You probably don't want to wear a smartwatch when you're bathing, so there's some extra benefits in there. It also has partnerships with a number of different players. One example is an FDA-approved software platform called Natural Cycles, which is an app for birth control. So they can collect all this information about the temperature very precisely, right? Because there are 4 different temperature sensors, and it gives you information about basically female health related insights there. And they even published a peer-reviewed study showing that they can detect COVID-19 up to 2.5 days before symptoms appear. So pre-symptomatic detection as well, all in a very small sort of a form factor there. So I think this is got our positive take here because they're clearly showing a lot of great momentum, and they have a lot of well-validated findings to support claims that they make. Now, going down, right, to your lower body, right? So this is where, you're looking at, digital biomarkers that are collecting information, mostly from the leg areas. One example here is, tools that are looking at trying to improve, let's say, gait, right? Your sort of gait training, right? Especially when you're going to an accident or stroke. And a company here I'd like to highlight is called MedRhythms. This is interesting because this company, essentially what they do is they apply a technique called neuromodulation, right? And they basically apply this well-known approach within neuromodulation called rhythmic auditory stimulation, or RAS, right? Where it's been established through a lot of research that the brain is actually, very well suited to be able to, you can actually train the brain to basically, follow certain music rhythms to improve and retrain your steps, right? Your gait, especially for stroke patients or those who have had accidents or other neurological conditions. It actually helps them to get back and improve and rehabilitate themselves, right? So this is a very powerful approach. And again, this is a closed loop system where you have these pressure sensors embedded in your soles. And then the app platform itself, they actually have a sort of music list that you can pick from. And then, as you're listening, it's collecting information and giving you better sort of feedback as to how to improve and rehabilitate as well. So this is a kind of technology where right now it's still within the clinical context, but you can imagine how this can be applied in the home setting as well. So you don't always need to visit, a therapist, especially when it's a long queue and you're going to wait for a long time. You can potentially do this at home as well. So I think this is a very interesting one to take note of as well. And last but not least, I talked about off-body sensors. So sensors that doesn't need to make contact with your body. All the sensors I talked about earlier, they actually need to make contact with your skin at some point, right? To collect the kind of different signals, be it brainwave signals or blood pressure signals or, temperature sensors and things like that. But you also have a set of technologies that can collect information without even making contact, right? With the person, right? And one such developer here is called Bina AI. They're an Israeli company. And what they do is they use basically a technology called remote PPG, right? Which is basically what they do is you just download the platform as an SDK to your phone, right? Or in other devices, your tablet or your laptops. And basically it leverages your camera and it collects a short video. So you take like a 20-second video of your cheek area. And if you look at this diagram here, it's a bit small, but the idea is the light source, hits your skin, and two different reflections are obtained, right? One actually is just direct reflection from your skin, goes back to the sensor. Another one actually penetrates your skin and then interacts with the blood vessels, right? And then it comes back and it's reflected back to the sensor as well. So the sensor then, the SDK that you download, uses AI to basically, collect that information, right, the differential, and work out what the blood pressure is. So it looks at blood pressure, can also look at heart rate, and also blood oxygen levels as well, right? And so this is very differentiated because you don't even need a wearable, right? All you need is a smartphone, and smartphone penetration is super high, even in undeveloped countries. I've seen reports where you have towns that don't have proper sanitation, but everyone has a handphone, right? So anyone can use it, and because it's developed as an SDK, you don't even need internet connection. It works on the edge, so you can collect the information, and then when you get internet connectivity, you can send that information to the cloud, to your care provider, and so on. So it's a very powerful system here, and you don't ever need to make contact with the skin, right? So that's, I think, an interesting one. So right now they're working with a lot of insurers, right, to look at how they can potentially distribute this to their customers to make sure they keep good health. But they're also looking at working with telehealth providers, through models like per patient per month model or pay per use model as well. So this is an interesting startup here that kind of encapsulates what I was talking about in terms of off-body sensors. So looking at the time here, I'm going to end off with an outlook slide. So really just three, I would say, key takeaways to take off, as you walk away from today's presentation. So non-invasive health monitoring is really going to be bigger. It's already big, but I think you can see that it's going to become a more powerful tool as the sort of validation and accuracy becomes more medical grade, and digital biomarkers is going to be the foundational layer that's going to drive this, right? So I think this is an area that you should definitely watch. Contactless biosensing is going to be the next generation of non-invasive health monitoring. So I talked about Bina AI, right? Because the challenge still with wearables is that you got to remember to wear your wearables. I use a smartwatch all the time, but sometimes I forget to wear, to use it, right? So you don't have that continuous set of information, but everyone has a smartphone, so you can always collect information through that whenever you want. And of course, if you're having dementia patients or young kids, right, you're not going to get them to wear smartwatches, but you can use these sort of tools to monitor their health as well. And finally, these digital biomarkers can complement many other tools as well. So because it's very digital in nature, you can integrate this to different kinds of platforms, right? Be it like food and nutrition platforms, genomic platforms, and companies beyond the healthcare space are super interested. I mean, we've talked to a lot of clients who are very interested in, working in the food and nutrition sector or the insurance sector, who are very interested in looking at how these technologies can value add to their user base as well. So that's kind of the end of it. So I think we've got a couple of minutes here. I don't know if there are any questions from the audience, but I'll end off here. As I said, if you're interested, I have my email here. Feel free to drop me a note if you want to learn more about what we do at Lux. So I want to talk about more about this topic. Happy to connect.